Hey everybody, welcome to this episode of Mismatch. So today it's just me and you, friends, because I'm going to address the elephant in the room. As you may or may not know, I recently went through a breakup. Yeah, the irony here, because honestly, when I started this podcast, I was in a relationship. And the whole time my plan was actually to, morph it into Mrs. Matched. Plot twist. That's not the case, and unfortunately, or fortunately, not where I'm at right now. So I'm 35, I'm single, and we're back at square one. But here's the thing. It's important for me to talk about this because, well, number one, I want to be authentic to what this podcast is all about. And, I want to be able to participate and have honest conversations where I am giving my real life experience and thoughts and emotions of what I'm going through. And number two, I hope anyway, that if you are single, maybe in your 30s, and just went through a breakup, that you can maybe understand. And like I said, the point of this whole podcast was to grow this community and really have a little gang that is supportive of one another during big life changes that, yes, are sad and devastating, and I will be fully transparent of how everything went down, but also empowering and it's so exciting about what is next. Because if there's anything that I've learned and this relationship has taught me, amongst the many lessons that we'll get to, but it's that you have one life to live. And if you are not happy, or if you don't see happiness, then it's not worth it. And so for me, it was the fear of being unhappy was greater than the fear of being alone. And so here we are. But if you're expecting this podcast to be, shitting on my ex or dissing him, this is not what this is. This is really just a reflection, more so for me than anything. And I hope, again, lessons that someone can take away that I wish I saw at the time, but I ignored. And so I want to call it out so that no one else has to feel or go through this. Because at the end of the day, they say the universe continues to show you or teach you lessons until you actually learn them. And well, I am making a line in the sand because I no longer want to learn this lesson, that's for sure. So here's the story. How did it all begin? Well, it began 2 years ago where a friend of mine had set me up with her brother-in-law. So it was foolproof. That Peloton relationship really was a traumatic experience. It felt like a divorce because we had a house together. We were together for many years. And so the breakup and separation and, divorce of it all was very heavy and very hard to deal with. So getting into a new relationship felt a bit daunting to me, but I felt comfort in knowing that, my friend, this is her brother-in-law. Like, she knows where he comes from. She knows what his family is about, his morals and values. So I felt a little bit of a sense of protection right there immediately, where my walls probably were a little bit lower than even they would have been walking if I had dated like someone from, say, an app. Because they were already vetted. And that's what I love about a setup. I recommend setups all the time. I've done it with so many of my friends who are married with kids in happy relationships, because you get a sense of who the person is and how they were raised. And to me, that allows you to kind of generate a connection without even investing time into it, because you already have that assumption of, the values alignment. I've received a lot of questions, about, did you hit up all the apps and did you even try dating other people? And I didn't, because I wasn't interested at the time. I was like, I have nothing to lose. I'll go out with him and see. And it was interesting because we texted for about 2 weeks. It was like I gave my number to her to give to him. We texted and spoke on the phone briefly, but I was traveling a lot, so I wasn't able to actually go out with him. And then when we did go out on our first date, it was like everything aligned. The date literally had everything that you wanted to have. There was a ton of laughter, a ton of chemistry, and like I said, this unspoken understanding of who one another really was and what we were looking for, because he was looking for a serious relationship and was like upfront about that. We're not dating for fun. And I was very intentional. I was choosing to date intentionally at that time as well. And I remember thinking after the date, okay, wow, like this feels differently. When you get that feeling after you have like a really good date, all the butterflies are fluttering in your stomach. There's this sense of excitement. You start even like dreaming up a future with someone that you met, which sounds like a little bit ludicrous, honestly. We should probably go on more dates so that I could fully identify that, because I'm not completely crazy, swear. So we go on a second date and I do something that I would never normally do. Again, like coming out of my previous relationship, I was like, I'm going to approach this completely differently and be very upfront and honest about who I am and what I want. So like second date, we fully spoke about values and life and kids and living. And one of the things that I made very clear, second date, I said, I live in Toronto and you live in Hamilton. And for people who don't know where that is, it's about like an hour away. But it also could be like an hour and a half away or 2 hours away, depending on traffic, because Toronto traffic, everybody knows, is absolutely insanity. So all that to say is I made it very clear of, I don't see myself ever living in your neck of the woods. So I would be expecting you to move here if like you wanted to date me and be with me like long-term future. I literally said this on the second date. Okay. No shame. I was like, I would rather know now if he's not willing to do that. And then I can move on and date someone else, meet someone else. That's fine. Lovely. But like that's an important value and alignment with your future of where you see yourself settling. And I say that it was for me. Like this is a personal thing. For me, it was very important because I want, to be near my family. I want to be near my job. I want to have children as well. So all of those things were really important to me. So when I had said that, I asked him, this is what's important to me. Would you be willing to move? And second date, he said, yeah, like I have a job, but not really a career. Like I think I'd be open to changing it and I can do what I do anywhere. And he worked in like construction renovation space. And he said, yeah, I can do this work anywhere. So yeah, I would totally be willing to move. And right from there, it was enough for me to say, okay, this is great. Now I can like really start dreaming up how this is going to go and date this person with that intention. Again, knowing that all these values were the same. And so then the relationship really picked up the pace, I would say. Like, especially at this age, I think in like your early 20s, and what I've noticed is the biggest difference is that things move faster. You have, again, harder conversations a lot sooner because time is of the essence. And I know everyone says you have so much time, but like real, and I've talked about this on the podcast, is there is a biological clock. Women have a biological clock, whether you admit it or not. And so that's something that's important to me, which is why I'm choosing to date intentionally. I'm not dating for fun. I'm dating because I want to find a husband. Baby, where the hell's my husband? I'll stop. But anyway, so as time went on, I think I started noticing a few things. And one of the commonalities in the relationship is that I constantly felt like I was pulling him along. Like he wasn't really ready for all these things. And I was kind of dragging his feet along for the ride. I was the one that was making the plans. I initiated the romance. I was the one, creating these opportunities to make super special memories and be thoughtful. And I found myself asking questions, looking and searching for this reassurance that I never really got. Like, am I your girlfriend? I realize I'm, almost 35 and maybe that's not a conversation, but I am a traditional girl and I am a hopeless romantic. And again, I was like very upfront about those sorts of things. So in saying that, then, it would be like, check yourself of like, okay, these are the things, this is how I'm going to treat her, but I had to be the one to say, I love you. Do you love me? And, I wanted to be my most authentic self. And so if I felt like I loved him, I wanted to say it. I don't care that I'm the woman. Is it nice to have the man say it to you first in a relationship? For sure. But I don't know, I felt confident that he would say it back, that almost he was scared to say it. So that's why I took the charge, is because I felt like he was just afraid. Not that he didn't feel it, because all of the things were there. And, I said it for a reason. And he never said no, but he also never took the lead. And I understand that that's an interesting dynamic in a relationship, but something I've learned again is to understand what I'm really needing and looking for. And because I lead my life in my career, where I'm constantly taking the charge, making decisions, managing people and things, in my personal life, I really was looking for someone to lead me. I want him to make a reservation. I want him to make plans. And it's not asking for a lot, but I think I kind of downplayed those standards that I had because it felt too much for him. And I want to be clear right now, reassurance in those things was not a lack of commitment on his part. So he never said no, but he also never led. There were a lot of words, big promises that never really had any follow through, that became an ongoing trend in this relationship, where there were conversations of, I want to marry you. And I'm not just talking like, of course we're going to get married, like a casual conversation. I'm talking about on his knees, literally, and looking at me in the eye, tears in his eyes, saying all these words like, I want to marry you. I want you to be the mother of my children. Let's do this. Last summer. He's like, do you want me to do this before we go away or when we come back? Asking for that validation. And I said, I want to marry you too. So whenever, I'm like, my preference is to not do it when we're away because I want to be near my family, if you're really asking. But I'm ready. Like, I'm all in this entire relationship. I really had to coach myself through it, of every time that I felt like a wall was coming up because I was fearful. I was like, he's not making plans, or he's not initiating this, or he said one thing and did another, or he's not showing up the way that I've asked him to show up multiple times in this relationship. But he would cry, I would feel sorry, and then I would lower my standards slowly, being like, oh, but he loves me. He's just not, capable of doing it. But all these conversations never turned into actual plans. And that's where I would get so upset over like the smallest little argument, because there were no actual steps taken or actionables to prove what he was doing. And I think he tried. He was, trying to get finances and career in order. But at the same time, it was like he decided to get a new job. And yet when he chose the job, it was for the city of Hamilton, where he's from. And I said, like, why would you? Well, number one, he didn't really tell me he was doing it. He was applying. And then when he did apply, I freaked out. And I don't like how I freaked out, to be honest. But it was, again, very much a buildup for me. And he said, you're not being very supportive of me in this journey. And I knew in my gut, I was like, it's hard for me to be supportive because you could be choosing a job anywhere. And instead of choosing a job that was to build a life for us, where we decided we were going to live, you're choosing something that's comfortable for you. And he reassured me, I'm going to do the drive. It's going to be okay. And in my gut, I knew, which is why I got so upset over him making that decision. And well, we got over that, and I said, I support you. I want you to be happy with what you do. And if you feel secure in this, and this is something that you want to do moving forward, I support you. Now, you remember, second date, I said you're going to live in Toronto. And well, as the relationship went on, it was slowly, no, we need to, meet more like in a halfway point. So we decided upon Poor Credit, which is kind of the halfway between my job, my family, and my work. Because I work at multiple places, in one day, I may have 7 different stops that I have to go to. I'm constantly driving, and I, have voiced how much I hate driving in this city. And I think a lot of people can relate to that, people who drive anyway, because there's traffic and it's very stressful, especially because I book things, to maximize my amount of time and efforts. For me, my time is money because I'm a freelancer. So that's like very important. And for him, it was a bit of a different scenario because his whole family work was in like a very close community. It was not very far. So he didn't really have to drive more than, say, 10 minutes out of his day to kind of get anywhere. So that's why we had decided on a location. It was Port Credit, where it was south. It was easy to get to for both of us. In saying that, it really wouldn't have been easy for me. I would have been making definitely more of a compromise or sacrifice for that matter because my family lives elsewhere and is very spread out where his family is in the same area. So I'd be definitely doing more of the driving. But like I said, happy to do it to make him feel comfortable so that he felt like I was making a commitment to this relationship, to building a life together. But it was really important for me to also say and let him know that, we are the ones that are building a family together. Yes, we want to be close to our family and to our friends, but what is our day-to-day? What does that look like? And for me, I really want to prioritize my job because I do that Monday to Friday and sometimes even on weekends. So it's important for me to have that accessibility because I don't want to be pissed off and annoyed 5 out of the 7 days of the week having to drive and whatnot. So I agreed to that location because it meant that we were both deciding to build a life together. We were both going to have, difficulties with the location, but at the same time, it was about our family and what made sense for our lives and our future together. And he was aligned. He said, you know what, that feels fair. We can definitely do that. So that was about a year into the relationship. And now fast forward to the 2-year point in the relationship where, again, there was no movement, talks of an engagement. There were questions. He would ask me, Nicole, what kind of ring do you want? And how much do you think I should spend? And, I gave a number. To me, I don't think it's asking a lot. I'll be honest. I said, I think it should be between like $8,000 and $10,000. I know I'm sure people feel ways about that. Here's the thing for me. A ring means more than the monetary value. It means you're promising her something, not for anything, but like I would want to do that for the other person. Like if there was something that he loved, that I would like work super hard to give that to him. It is a symbol of commitment. So what does that mean? Are you willing to, give her everything that she would want and dream of, or are you not? And it turned into a whole messy argument of, him saying like, I would marry you with a paper ring, which is super sweet. It also really hurt me that I had to like beg for what I felt like I deserved. It just felt really unfair that he asked the question and then couldn't handle the answer and tried to make me feel bad about my answer. Because at the end of the day, I think he made it a fight and to make me kind of feel badly about what I wanted because he was struggling to provide that for me. And that's where this kind of all comes from is throughout the relationship. Another thing was that there was insecurity on his part. And I don't mean in like a cheating, lying way because I was always very loyal and honest and forthcoming, but in a way of he would say things like, I don't feel good enough for you and why me? And, I would go out of my way to try and show him that none of that matters. Nothing else mattered but like my love for you. Like I see you and your heart and who you are, and I love you for you. But it just didn't register with him. He couldn't understand it. This was not a reflection on my love or lack of doing enough or not doing enough. It was very much he couldn't show up as his most authentic, best self. So instead of him dealing with it, I was slowly kind of shrinking myself, lowering my standards, lowering my asks so that it could make him feel better about himself. It got to the point where I was saying, okay, I don't need a ring. I don't even need a wedding. Let's just elope. because I love my family, that would have been like a really big sacrifice for me to make. But again, I did it to make him feel good and better about starting a future. One of the hardest parts for me too along the relationship is the lack of support with my career. Now, he would talk about me with his family and friends of I'm so proud of her. Again, words. I'm so proud of her and she's doing this and she's doing that. But there was never like follow through with those things. I host a show that airs on CP24, CTV, and CTV2. There are multiple opportunities to watch this show. They air on different times. It airs Saturday mornings and Tuesday evenings. He never watched a show once. In 2 years, never made an effort. And here's the thing. I asked multiple times. I asked, hey, do you think you can watch this? Or what do you think about this? It was always, I'm too tired. I don't get that. You can get it on your phone. There was always an excuse. And I really feel like he had a very hard time accepting who I really was. And, he would get asked every other day, like, when are you going to propose? What are you waiting for? Well, I think he was waiting because he wasn't going to do it. I don't even think he ever had a plan to do it, honestly. And again, like, it's not because I wasn't supportive of him. I spent a whole weekend cleaning property to help him out. I would clean his house for him when he wasn't home to help him because he was overwhelmed or stressed, or I consider myself to be a pretty thoughtful person. So I go out of my way, to do things to help make someone's life easier. And that was his love language as well. And I knew that. And it's interesting because I don't think he ever understood mine. So I don't say all of this to keep score. I say all this because it revealed something to me. That is emotional capacity. And unfortunately, I don't think that can be taught. Here's the part I need to own, that like I'm describing all of these things and, this insecurity that I felt with his intentions and feelings, I ignored them. I own that. I built things up. I would communicate it to him, but I stayed. And I lowered my standards for this other person. And that's on me. I decided to trust him and his words over my own and what my gut and my heart and my mind even were saying to me. And yes, I have done that before. Again, the universe was teaching me this again because I clearly wasn't getting it. Not only do I love, but I also love potential because I see these men who can be these great humans. And then, I think I get caught up and fall in love with that instead of what they're actually showing me and actually doing. So when it came time to talk about next steps and what that all looked like, it became very clear. I did some fertility testing and I'm going to freeze my eggs because I didn't want him to feel rushed. And we can rent. We don't have to buy right away, and making these accommodations to make it easier to kind of move forward and really start our lives together. And when part of these conversations, we sat down, we were talking about where we're going to live. And again, going back to what we decided upon, where I was already bending and compromising and poor credit, we sat down and he says to me, okay, but what about Burlington, Oakville area, which is again 2 townships over, closer to where he is. I lost my mind. I'm not proud of it. I literally saw black and I got so angry. And it was honestly, I just felt like there was steam coming through my ears. I was so pissed because it was we've had all these conversations. I've already been compromising. I give you a hand and now you're taking my arm. And I felt very disrespected, very misled, very betrayed, honestly. And again, those are all feelings that I had felt before from my previous relationship that my body, I think, was trying to tell me signs of this entire relationship. And I seemingly ignored it. And so I lost my mind, and he got very upset, obviously. And then I couldn't calm down. Like, it took me, I asked for a bit of time to not talk, to really hone in on my emotions, because the regulation was not regulating at that point, because I was so disappointed, I think. And I was so, for me, his answer was confirmation of what I knew in my gut. And I think it was I was also, not only was I so mad at him, but I was so mad at myself. And I still am, of choosing not to listen to me and believing in his empty promises. And so, he had suggested to make a spreadsheet. Again, that was triggering for me, because my ex-boyfriend made spreadsheets with money and whatnot, and he knew that, and he still decided to do it. And so it was he went about this in all the wrong way, but I think it was meant to happen this way, because it revealed a lot about where he was at and what he thought. Like I said, we took some time and we didn't speak for a couple weeks. And during that time, which is a while back, I felt like I was mourning the relationship then. Before it even ended, I mourned it, because I knew in my gut he was going to give me the answers that I already knew he was going to say out loud. Well, not out loud, because he wrote it in a letter, but he wanted to articulate all his feelings and emotions. He really struggled with communicating how he felt. And so I wanted to give him that opportunity without me, interrupting him or feeling emotional. So I wanted to give him that space to do that. So he did. And although he prefaced the letter of, I want to outline why I think the way that I do, none of it regarded me at all. My well-being, my passion, my career, my family, my thoughts, the fact that I'm a woman and that I'm going to have kids. It was completely obvious that he was only thinking of himself. And that made it easy for me to be nope, not my person. Because if my person really loved me, they wouldn't want me to be struggling and unhappy. They would meet me halfway. That's all that I was asking for, was compromise, not sacrifice. Those are two very different things. And what came out eventually was that I had said it. This obviously is very hurtful to hear, but also it upsets me because I feel duped. Were you just not honest with yourself, or did you change, or were you hoping that I was just going to, seemingly change my mind all of a sudden? And he's like, yeah. I said, wow, it hurts that you took advantage of my love and trust, hoping that I would just change my mind and love you so much that I would sacrifice all these things that make me me to be with you. And how sad is that? You don't really love me for me then, For me, it wasn't, he was struggling with the compromise. He was just wanting me to sacrifice. And that's something that I know I couldn't live with or do. And listen, he's not a bad guy. I just don't think he was ever honest about what he wants with himself and his life. And I think he fell in love with this idea of me and realized by the end of this that as much as, she's this shiny object, I don't think I can that's not what I want at the end of the day. It's not what he wants. He wants, maybe someone who has less ambition and dreams and is more stable and conservative, and it's just not who I am. I am a dreamer. I'm a mover. I am ambitious. I will take chances and risks every day. I bet on me. I jump in 2 feet with everything that I do, whether that it turns out to be a success or a failure for that matter. And I work really freaking hard. I'm not afraid to work hard to either make more money or to get something that I want. whether that be a job or moving up in a position or whatever that is. But I've never been afraid of that. And that's because my parents raised me that way. So shout out to Rosemary and Nick, because I don't think too many people have qualities like that anymore. And, but like I said, I'm not going to change who I am or lessen my hopes and dreams to make someone else feel better about theirs. There were questions. He asked me, when are you going to give up your career? And he didn't mean it in a bad way, but it was more so like, he meant it in the way of, Nicole, you work so hard and I don't want you to work so hard, and you can live closer to where you can live in Hamilton because it's an easier life, and, things aren't as expensive, and we can have more by doing less. And it hurt because he couldn't understand that, like, my career is who I am. It is my whole heart of passion, of loving what I do. And the fact that he didn't have that value made it very hard for him to understand why I wanted to work so hard and why I do what I do. It's because it brings me joy. It brings me so much joy. I love going to work every single day. And it hurts that he couldn't understand that or want that from me or support that from me. And in that moment, it clicked. It was like, oh, I'm not your girl. I'm not that girl. I never was that girl. I never pretended to be that girl. But I'm not going to be that girl either, ever. I cannot shrink myself to make you feel like you're enough. So when we sat down and had all these conversations, he was crying. I was crying. I was saying, like, this is done. It was sad. It was really sad because it's like there was love there, but you just couldn't be the guy that I needed you to be. I would say, like, I said to my mom, I just wish he was a better man. And you can't tell someone to have this emotional capacity to be thoughtful and consider somebody else. They either have it or they don't have it. And when I walked away, there was no fight in him. No regret, no messages of I miss you, I'm sorry. It was just done. It was just over. And that also made it very clear to me of, like, this is not my person. I want someone who's going to fight for me, who is going to do everything in their power because their life will not be great without me in it. That, they can't imagine their life without me. And I think I deserve that because I have that to give to someone. That is the kind of love that I have to give someone that I'm looking for and that I want so badly. I wrote him a letter, no ego. I wrote all my feelings down, and in the letter I'd said, I was like, you don't even have the emotional capacity to, like, say I'm so sorry or I messed up or I wish I could be this for you. Like, nothing. It's because he is not capable. And accepting all of that was difficult. It was really tough, but I was able to hear everything that I needed to hear, and I was able to say everything that I needed to say. And that was, like, really the closure that I needed. And so it was, like, cold turkey done. And it's been, a couple months now. And, I struggled at the beginning a lot. I think like I said, I just felt really duped. The misled, feeling stupid. That's, like, I know it comes from a very ego-driven place, but I couldn't understand how someone couldn't be honest with themselves. And in going through all these emotions, slowly picking myself up, I'm so grateful for this podcast because I had all the greatest resources to turn to help, from experts that I've had on the show, of listening to the community and, like, people around me, which has been amazing. And I, like, had all these tools in my toolbox that made this breakup. I felt sorry for myself for a little bit, and then pick yourself right back up. Your heart is a muscle. So it too, it might tear, but you can heal it and it gets stronger. I will never give someone the ability to take away my love or my ability to love with someone else. I am still a believer. I still have faith. I'm so open-minded and hopeful and excited for the future and what life has to bring because, yeah, God, the universe has a plan, and I think it's saving, someone really great to send my way. And yeah, you just never know. Life is crazy. So I take this relationship as, I ask myself, like, what did I get out of this? Everyone is saying to me, oh, wow, you wasted 2 years of your life? Like, what kind of guy does that? And as much as it feels like a waste, it really isn't, because I think he taught me how to love again. I didn't think that I was going to be able to let my walls down and really fall for someone in the same way that I did with my ex. Oh God. But I was able to, we laughed a lot. We had a lot of good times. There were a lot of bad times, but there were a lot of good times too. And I think he came into my life when I needed it. I needed the hope. I needed the levity. I needed the fun. And then I think where I went wrong is that's where he was like meant to stay in for that and then kind of leave. But it became serious. And that's where things, obviously, the universe was like, nope, we're going to pick you up, Nicole, now, and we're going to put you over here because this life is not meant for you. That person served his purpose in your life, and now you're meant to move on to be with somebody else. And I hope I taught him something. Yeah, there's no ill will there. I really do wish him the best. So during this breakup, some of the things that I've been doing that have been really helpful, like I said, listening to Mismatch has been very helpful. I have been doing a lot of me things. So pouring into self-care has been very helpful. Back at the gym, eating healthy, making routines for myself. It's really important to, redesign your life because that person fit into comfortability, right? Of routine and what you, from like a morning text to good night to I see you on Saturdays or whatever. So it's just a matter of redesigning your routine and what that looks like and making it fun and exciting. Like I like to go out, and I don't really have a lot of friends that can go out whenever I can go out because they have family and responsibilities and kids and whatnot. So I've been doing a lot of solo dates, and it's been amazing dating the city and going out to a bar, grabbing a book. I shout out to Jen Kirsch for that tip because it is a hot one. I have met so many interesting people doing that. So that has been a lot of fun, and really pouring time into myself, into my job and my work and new things coming up, which I'm very excited about. And travel has been amazing and such a blessing as well. Beautiful getaways that I've been able to do with amazing friends and family. Something else that I've been doing is therapy, and it has been so incredibly helpful of how, to have a healing mindset, but also how to approach things differently, because I'm obviously in the mindset of let's not make this happen again. And how do we not date potential and see things and ask questions very differently? And again, as I kind of go through dating all over again, I definitely plan to share all of this along the ride of that journey and what it looks like. Something that was profound that my therapist has said to me, well, she's asking me, what's the common thread, Nicole? And I had said, I feel like a lot of guys pretend to be one way and then reveal themselves to be another way. And she had said, I think it's time for you to reel it in. And I was like, what? And this doesn't mean not showing up as myself, because I am, a giving person. But in the sense of, she was like, when you're on a date and you're asking questions, be an active listener rather than someone who is answering and saying what you want. She's like, I highly recommend giving him the opportunity to speak first before you say what you want. Because when you say what you want, then guys want to be what you want because they want to be with you. And well, that's how all this mess is happening. I mean, amongst other things that I can get into another time, but it's really important to, I don't want to say hold back, but I want to say really let him say very clearly what he's after and what he's looking for. And it's not so much of asking questions of like, so what do you value? It's asking deeper questions of, so what about your family do you value the most? Is it quality time? Is it the safety that you feel with them? There are different levels to values that you should continue to ask in a relationship, and probably ask sooner rather than later, because it's not as simple as just asking, oh, I value my family. No, there's more to it, and there's more nuances with that I think will change the dynamic of how I date and how I approach and will meet my person. That is one of the many lessons that I have been learning, but I will continue to share. But to quote one of my girlfriends who says, Nicole, good people break up every day. And again, when I think back to this relationship, I'm going to quote Samantha Jones from Sex and the City, because I watched the entire season back to back recently. But Samantha Jones, I love you, but I love me more. And I will never, hide myself, drown myself to be with somebody else. I want someone to love me for all of me. And I really do believe that exists. And I'm still hopeful. But I do want to give you some takeaway lessons here. Lesson number 1, emotional capacity cannot be taught. You can communicate your needs endlessly, but if that person isn't capable, then it will never land. It will never work out. Will just be a roundabout circle. Lesson number 2, words are not plans. Marriage talk without any movement is just breadcrumbing. Words always need to be followed up by actions. So if you say you want to marry someone and they're not doing anything to lead you to believe that they're going to do it, they're probably not going to do it. Number 3, you need to trust patterns, not apologies. Someone can say they're sorry over and over and over again, but if they continuously do this to you, then pretty indicative that it's not going to change. Lesson number 4, compromise is mutual, and there is a difference from compromise to sacrifice, and you never want to be sacrificing in a relationship. And lesson number 5, never trust someone else over yourself. Your gut, your intuition will always be right and will never lead you astray. In fact, I would even say that your intuition whispers to you before your heart breaks. So really tune in to yourself in a relationship. Ask yourself, am I really happy? Is this person really what I want? If you're listening to this and you recently went through a breakup, I hope this story helped you a little bit. I hope it gave you a little bit more hope and faith that everything happens for a reason. It will all work out. Life goes on, and life is so beautiful. We have one stab at it. So here's to making the most of this next chapter. Wish me luck.